Oh, you could easily.
I don't know why they don't just buy another chair. That's been like years.
What's the matter?
It's the small chair.
You got the little boy chair.
I do.
Okay, why can't they fix it?
Why can't they just buy another chair? Which trustee sits in the chair?
Well, look at this, we have cups tonight, so you know you're not tight on the budget. So good day, good evening, afternoon, everybody. Welcome to our November zoning board meeting. Before we get started tonight, I just want to say a couple words. We had this week, our former building inspector, Paul Houlihan, died suddenly. And kind of rocked our world. Paul was he was a friend. He was a guiding light for a lot of us. To me personally, he was a tremendous help. I know all of us here on the board and a lot of you out there have had dealings with Paul over the years. And he was about 5 years into his retirement, and we lost him way too early. And it's just something we're all very sad about. And our best wishes, of course, with his family and his friends. And I just wanted to make sure everybody knew about that. Okay, so we move along tonight with our meeting. We have a few decisions. Our first decision tonight is David Weinstein, 7 Meadow Road. Does anybody have that one? Because that was, there was some modifications made to that application that was agreed upon, and we have a decision written to approve that request for a variance. So I'm going to make a motion that we accept that decision as written. Second by Jim. You all in favor?
Aye.
The next one is for Mary and Kenneth Gori, 350 Dune Road. That was another one that we had some discussion over a few meetings about, and that application was modified with agreement of parties, and we have a decision to approve that variance. So I'd like to make a motion that we accept that variance as written. Second by Dan. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay. The next one, Scott Eichel, 161 Dune Road. We don't have a decision on that one yet. We'll have it for Christmas next month. Okay, then we have, again, Joy Hepburn, 339 Mill Road. That's another one we'll have next time. And Faith and Thomas Tilson, 218 Dune Road. That's another decision that we'll have next time. We don't have that one yet. Number 6 is LaCroix LLC, 482 Dune Road. That we have a written decision to approve that variance. So I'll make a motion that we approve it as written. Second by Joe. All in favor?
Aye.
Robin and Terry Burke, 11 Tuttle Place. Once again, we have a decision to approve that variance request, so I'll make a motion to accept that decision as written.
Second.
Second by Jim, all in favor?
Aye.
Lee Dub, 9 Stacy Drive. Pretty confident in these decisions when they don't come in, huh? That variance has also been granted. I'll make a motion that we accept that decision as written. Second by Dan, all in favor?
Aye.
And the next one is Beach Star Capital, 22 Bayfield Lane, one Mr. Hatefully had. So again, we have a decision to, a written decision approving that variance. I'll make a motion that we accept that variance as written. Second by John, all in favor?
Aye.
All right. See, with such a big agenda, we just went through 9 things, right? 9 of the 18 out of the way. All right. Our next one is the holdover for Jim Vazick at 27 Siswin Lane, and we have a request to hold that over. So I'm going to make a motion, we hold it over for all purposes.
Second.
Second by Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay. And now Lawrence and Donna Francis, 77 Library Avenue. Okay. Applicant requests variances from 197-29-1A for a proposed unfinished second story over a detached garage representing a prohibited increase in gross floor area of a pre-existing non-conforming accessory structure in the front yard.
Good evening, everybody.
Good evening. While we do this tonight, I've noticed that some of our recordings, we record everything, so when you come up to the podium to speak, please just speak into the microphone as much as you can. Thank you.
Did you need me to go over it, or did you have any questions, or?
Well, first, we'd like to know who you are.
Sure. Paul Sigismundi, I'm with Nicholas Vero Architecture, 120 Mill Road,
You with
Westhampton
who?
Beach.
Nicholas Vero?
Yeah.
Nick, we know Nick Vero?
Maybe,
Who's that?
you might.
Okay. Yeah, why don't you explain to us, this is our, you're just looking for additional storage above this garage?
Yes.
So I guess our concern with something like this, of course, is that this is a non-conforming structure. So we don't ever want to have something where you're going to put a second story up there and then, months from now, put curtains over the windows and the bathroom and start to have a living structure.
Okay.
So this is just going to be strictly storage?
It, all it's listed for is storage. There's only the two small windows on each end.
Mm-hmm.
It's not set up, there's no enclosure. The staircase leads right to up top, and it's not, built or anything rated for living space.
All right, that's really the biggest thing that we want to establish, the fact that it's not,
Well, from the actual garage itself leads right upstairs.
okay.
Yeah.
So, well, with that, I don't have any other questions. That was just the one thing I wanted to make sure about. Board members, anybody have any questions?
Let me ask you a question. What was your
Sure.
first name?
Paul.
Paul, don't you have the availability to build, in the rear yard here, for storage?
Lot coverage wise, no. So by going up on the garage, we're not increasing lot coverage,
But you-
because right now the lot is maxed out lot coverage.
Is it?
Yes, that's at 20%.
It says building area lot coverage,
It says 11.8%.
11.8%.
Oh, I'm sorry, for that lot, I believe it's 12, not 20 because of the size of the lot.
I'm sorry?
I believe it's 12 and not 20 for the size of that
No,
lot.
you allow 20%.
Okay.
That's my concern, is, you have the availability of building storage, in the back.
I'd have to look at the site plan because I have wetland setbacks that run along the side there.
Okay.
That might have, let me open this up. I mean, the initial plan is just to keep it as cost effective for the homeowner as possible by just building basically some added walls and a new roof on the existing garage. So that's
Yeah. You okay with that? I think building another structure on that property might be a little different.
I mean, it would fill up the only real spot of backyard they have. Well, not fill up, but it would take a portion of it up. So like I said, it just, the most straightforward thing was to do a second story on the garage, turn that into storage space.
I don't know, I would prefer you do a little more homework on that and and see if that can't be done. If there are wetlands involved and there's restrictions, then make that part of your argument. Nick should know that. A new elevated structure right at the street line is not that attractive.
No, the hedgerow that's right next to it, that blocks it from the front, is nearly as tall as the building is now. So yes, I mean, it would stick up past that, but, they're friendly with the other neighbors. Nobody seems to have an issue with it.
Right.
Like I said, cost effectiveness wise, this is really, we deemed the best spot for it.
Yeah, that's just my take on it.
Okay.
Brad, you have anything on this? You went out and looked at it, right? With the storage, they have very limited storage on this property? The Library Avenue one?
Yeah, there's, with the marshland and the high water and it's so low to the, sea level, so close to sea level, I think their existing crawl space is limited on the house, and it was a modular, so there's really no attic space there. Particular house. If you're interested in the sea setback for a functional dwelling, 100 feet from, freshwater wetlands would probably be within the DEC's jurisdiction for disturbance, so. If they were to build another structure almost anywhere on the west side of the property, they would need DEC approval.
Which is basically the back. Like I said, at that 100-foot buffer, it covers almost that whole back area.
Okay. We have, anybody else have any interest in this application? Okay, thank you. I'm gonna make a motion, we close this for a decision. Do I have a second on that?
Second.
You all okay with that? Okay,
Thank you.
number 12 is 16 Fanning Holding LLC. We have a request to hold it over for 2 months, if I'm correct, right? So I'm gonna make a motion, we hold that over to our January. All right, all right to hold it over for 2 months?
Yes.
Okay, John seconds it. Good. All right. January. Okay, number 13, Lucky 13, Westhampton Property Management LLC, 141 Montauk Highway. The applicant requests variances from 197-17 for a proposed grocery store with a gross floor area of 6538 square feet, where the maximum permitted is 5,000 square feet, from 197-17-1 for a proposed rear yard setback of 13.3 feet, where the minimum required is 50 feet. Proposed combined side yards of 47.6 feet, where a minimum required is 50, and from 197-29 1A for a proposed building addition, which represents a prohibited increase in gross floor area of a building with a pre-existing non-conforming front yard setback, 41.5 existing, proposed where the minimum is 50 feet. And also from 197-29 1A for a proposed storage addition, which represents a prohibited increase in gross floor area of a building with a pre-existing non-conforming side yard, 3 feet existing, proposed where the minimum required is 20 feet.
Good evening.
Good evening,
Ho-
Mr. Bennett.
Hopefully everyone's doing fine. My name is John Bennett and I represent the applicant. My associate Bailey Larkin was here last month to present some amended plans.
Mhm.
The application before the board was amended to include a proposed addition off the south side that would include refrigerated storage with an enclosed interior hallway for access to the refrigerated storage from the sales office portion of the building, and we did submit a floor plan showing that. In addition, you know, at the urging of the building department, I think it made sense because the lots are probably merged by operation of law anyway. We did agree that the lots would be, all those contiguous lots, commonly owned properties would be merged, so that takes that issue out of it. And once they're all contiguous, the commonly owned properties are considered, once they're all the need for any relief from lot coverage restrictions was eliminated, and the total side yard variance relief was significantly reduced. So I think that was all good, and we're before the planning board and the parking, and at the planning board's request, the coordinated access is all happening on on that parcel anyway. So it just makes sense from a comprehensive, both planning and zoning application to bring all those lots in. Candidly, I don't know how those lots got created. There were a couple in the back that were just,
Weird,
so
yeah.
it just, I don't know, something,
is
there might have been
unique.
small deed transfers that Real Property Tax Service just looked at them as separate lot. I don't know how, but it doesn't matter now because we're going to bring it all in together. So I think that's helpful from a point of view. So this is a Cinderella. It's a nice grocery store. If you've been to any of them, Joe Guerrero, who's the principal, goes out of his way to make sure that not only the buildings in the interior, but the exteriors are extremely well maintained. I think it'll be a wonderful addition to this area. But let's talk about the relief requests and our reasons why. We want to put the building at 41.5-foot front yard. The pre-existing building maintains a 41.8-foot setback. So the renovated and expanding building would be no closer to Montauk Highway than presently exists. There is an extension off to the east there that thus necessitating the relief, but we're not coming any closer to Montauk Highway, and we're about 4/5 of the way of the required setback anyway. That 41.5 setback from Montauk is not inconsistent with surrounding development. For example, the existing building at 160 Montauk Highway maintains a 40-foot 40-foot front yard setback. And also, as part of the, overall looking at this in an overall way, we're really cleaning up the ingress and egress and the parking area at the request of the planning board. So we think all in all, that's a good job and a community benefit. And
What's the latest comments you've had from the planning board?
essentially, they wanted us to coordinate access along the front, just along the front, and that's what the plan shows. We wanted to finish up with you guys actually before we went back to the planning board. But I think, we've got a little bit of work to do with the planning board, but we've hired Rayner Group, and I think they're working extremely well with the planning board. Brad may have some comments about it, but I think we have a good path towards success in the planning board. We've been very, 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 very accommodative. At first, it took a while. Honestly, it took a while for me to demonstrate to the applicant that he was going to have to do the sidewalks, that he was going to have to deal with some other improvements up front there, then he was going to have to deal somehow with the adjoining parcel to the east, and that's what we've done. And so the planning board was not surprisingly quite supportive of that. They didn't see the need for any continuous access along the back though, because it gets tight and it just doesn't work. So there was a little bit of a back and forth about that, but ultimately I think it's fair to say the board members unanimously, and you'll correct me if I'm wrong, Brad, felt that as long as we were doing the coordination up front, there was no need for that continuous run from, what is it? It's from Oak to
Sunset.
Sunset. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I just forgot the name of the street. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Okay. So we also, I know at one of the meetings, some members had heard from, not in the audience, but yeah, this is a small town. You hear it on people approach you on the street, and I get that. As long as it's, you tell us about it, that's great. There was one of the neighbors, the residential parcels to the south was concerned
The
about.
south, yeah.
Yeah, so what we did is for both a vegetative and visual buffer and a sound attenuation thing. We've got double rows of evergreen back there, some a stockade fence, and I mean, whatever else the board wants, but I think that'll do it. But
I
it's
think that should be more than sufficient,
Yeah.
John. I mean, I was the one who spoke to the neighbor and that was a big concern.
yeah, well, and that's fine. I
And there
mean,
was just a, the buffering between the commercial and the residential area. And I think that, what you proposed, because I read the whole memorandum that you sent, the little phone book that you sent over to us to read, and, I went through that and I noticed you had it in there, so I think that was a good solution. to
It was,
that
it was a
aspect.
it was a specific request. It was a reasonable request. So get it done. That's, we're here asking for some relief, and these are things that you want, and so we'll get it done. Um, the big issue I think we have here, and I say it's a big issue, I said the most important issue, and I don't think, and you'll ultimately be the judge of this, and I don't want to be presumptuous at all. With respectfully, I don't think it's much of a stretch. I want to have a 5,000 square foot area to sell food, just the 5,000 square foot area to sell food. So that with an additional 1,538 square feet associated with refrigerated storage.
Mhm.
And that's what's coming out of the back. It's necessary. We looked at alternatives. We could add to the basement. It's more expensive because of various requirements, which is detailed in the what do you call them? The estimates and Sean Leonard's statements. That would, if we had to do it in the basement, it would also take away from some of the floor space up above. So we'd be back to you asking for even more relief up above. The code says 5,000 square feet. We'll have 5,000 square feet of sales area. Brad felt, and listen, I'm not going to argue with that. We're here asking for a variance that the 5,000 square feet was, all in. So we're asking for the extra 1,538 square feet just for the refrigeration, not for store area. We did have, I remember I used to go to a Cidermiller Market in Watermill before there was one in Southampton. I live in Southampton, and it was 3,500 square feet. It didn't go it didn't go anywhere, and Mr. Guerrero stated that. The East Hampton Market, which is the smallest one, is 7,800 square feet. The one in Southampton is about 11,000 square feet, and it has a full basement. It existed there. People don't know this, but I know just from being a kid growing up in Southampton, that used to be the A&P, believe it or not, in Southampton before it was this mini mart thing. The A&P was on Hampton Road.
Yeah.
People say no. I said yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But if you go into one of his markets, um, there are a lot of employees there. It's very well maintained. There are people servicing all different departments. But in order to do that, you need to have a decent line of different products. And 5,000 square feet, we think, is the minimum that we can do merely for the sales, but we have to put the refrigeration somewhere else. And we don't think it's reasonable, respectfully, to ask for that to be taken away from the floor area or require us to build out this full basement. And we went through, and I can go through it, we went through why that would take away space from up above as well. It would be somewhere between 27% and 30% more expensive to do the basement. And again, we would be back asking you for more relief up top because of, we need an elevator and some other requirements would take away from the first floor space. I don't know how, yeah. And I understand, and I think it was you, Mr. Chairman, who said, we have to be careful because this is a relatively recent law, the 5,000 square feet.
Yeah.
And I get that. I understand it. We did thought it would be interesting for the board. There was that application of WHB Development Partners. That was an application for relief from pretty much relatively new limitations on a convenience store. And the board was kind enough to give them essentially another 1,000 feet, which was 33% larger than permitted by the special exception. Here, we're asking for about 30.8% larger from the special exception. We thought that was fair, and we thought if we came in and we demonstrated to you the facts and the needs for it, that hopefully we would find an accommodating ear. I don't know where the 5,000 square feet came from. to certain degrees, when you're, when the planners are creating these limitations, they are, to a certain degree, a little bit arbitrary. I'm not sure where, I didn't find anything. I did review the business district's planning study and didn't see any specific explanation as to why there was a 5,000 square foot limitation. And then what I did do is, I thought was interesting, I did look at the table of use regulations, and then just by comparison, just let me hand them out, you know, and I found, sorry. These all are- Pass those down in my speed to, I thought about this at the last minute. I might not have made enough copies, but one of the things that you'll see, for example, is meat and seafood markets in this districts are out as of right without any square footage limitations. Beer, liquor, and wine sales, no limitation at all. And so it's a little bit uneven. Oh, that's what the trustees said. It's just, I guess I'm to a little degree attacking sort of gingerly an inconsistency, what I would see in the law. I don't see any limitations for meat and sea. So you could have a meat and seafood market without these limitations, because it doesn't say anything about, it's not defined as a grocery store per se. But I think where you have legislation where I couldn't find any reason for the 5,000 square foot limitation, I think if we come to you and we demonstrate why this is a reasonable request and why we need it, hopefully you'll be sympathetic to that. Again, I think my associate and on the second go around, and I put in everything that's necessary. I think we respectfully and factually demonstrated the reason that we want this benefit, that it's a reasonable benefit, that it's not going to have any impact on the neighborhood. And I think net, in terms of what's going on here, in terms of all the stuff we're working out in the planning board, and the fact that this is, I think this will be a great shot in the arm to that area. It'll be a thriving business, God willing, like all the rest of his stores. He's been a good citizen, certainly, to the village of Southampton, essentially turned around Hampton Road. Southampton turned it into something totally different. He opened up Citarella, and then within about a year, I worked on an application for a coffee shop across the street and a sort of a high-end, for lack of better, where do you get your prescriptions? A pharmacy on the same road. And I think it's really helped that area of Hampton Road in the village of Southampton. Hopefully, I feel confident it would do the same here. So I don't think there's any detriment, just a plus for that stretch of the road. I really don't have anything else unless the board has any questions.
I do.
Good.
Where there's been some changes, a lot of things you stated. Can we go through exactly what variances
Oh, sure.
we need?
Yep,
for this,
absolutely
that
will
you're-
do.
You've eliminated some, reduced other ones, and let's talk about, let's go right through these and see.
Yeah, I was gonna do that, but you read the actual request, so I didn't wanna, but it's a good idea. So we need a grocery store in excess of 5,000 square feet, and that's 19717. So that's the one bit of relief, and I've talked a lot about that.
Right? And that's gonna be strictly for the refrigeration units that you go over to 5,000. 5,000 is the store, the additional is the refrigeration.
The storage and the refrigeration. So
Okay.
the selling area and the office and stuff like that would be the 5,000. Just the refrigeration in the back. That extends to 12.8 feet in the rear yard. But again, we'll do whatever is necessary. I think we've shown trying to be a good neighbor, hopefully, and attenuate any sound or visual impact.
Okay, so
from
you have
that.
the proposed rear yard setback?
That's 12.8.
13.3.
It says 13.3.
That was the 13.3 was the old plan. It was amended.
Is this?
Yeah, you renoticed
We
it.
renoticed that, so it's
Thank
gonna
you,
be
Ed.
how much?
12.8, yeah.
12.8.
That's the first thing I noticed. Bailey said to me, just use my talking points from the last time. And I said, I pulled out the survey and I said, "Oh, okay, but you got
12.8.
12.8 here."
Okay, thank you. That's why I want,
Yeah,
we
No,
need to go
no,
through
no,
this.
absolutely.
Okay,
And then,
side yard, combined side yard setback,
yeah, that went from a big request for relief down to 47.6 where 50 is required. It's
Uh-huh,
almost there
okay.
because bringing all the lots together.
It's only
And also
2.4
the
feet.
lot coverage uh, request disappeared. So that was really good. I think that was really good. Um, Candidly, I hope the board is somewhat amused by this. The owner was like, now I can get fewer beach permits because they're less tax max numbers. I said, want a good tenant, you want the extra beach permits. So I
Yes.
think that might have been the reason why he
Tough
wasn't
landlord,
merging
huh?
them. But then, I'm sorry, I don't mean
Enjoys,
to
right?
interrupt myself. I thought it was sort of funny.
Your
And-
valuable commodity here. You
Excuse
don't
me?
joke about it.
No, I know, a lot of, that's very true. Um, And then on the side yard, 3 feet where 20 is required, but the building already maintains towards the, what is that? That's the north, a 0 side yard setback in any event. And I know your side yard setbacks are your side yard setbacks, but it's not unusual in commercial districts to have even 0 side yard setbacks. But I don't, we're not, so we're holding,
Which side is the 3
it's
foot?
to the
West.
west, thank you.
West. Okay.
So that's, and then we're increasing, you have a code section that says, I guess it's 29(1)A. We're asking an expansion of a non-conforming structure, so technically we have to ask for that relief as well. But, yeah, I think actually the only request that got bigger and it was tiny was that rear yard setback. Instead of 13.3, it's at 12.8.
Mm-hmm.
It was originally 15.9 in September, and then we renoticed it for 13.3. 13.3 was the renotice, and that was the plan we were working off of, so I don't know what is 12.8.
Well,
12.8 we noticed?
No,
No, it was
13.3.
15.9 in September, and then we renoticed in October at 13.3.
okay.
So I don't
Okay,
know
but
what
now they
the
need 12.
survey that
Okay,
was
so they need
submitted
less.
is
That's
12.8.
good, right? They need less.
Getting closer
Doesn't it have
by
to be renoticed then?
half a foot.
Yes, it would have to be renoticed if he needs the 12.
Oh, we're gonna find a way to make
It's
it work. then.
13.3 noticed.
We'll find a way to make it work.
You, okay, so it's,
It's a half a foot. If somebody can't figure that out. Easy for me to
Otherwise we'd
say. I'll
have to
get
do
yelled
the-
at by the architect and the engineer, but I'm,
Right, so it's
I
gonna go
certainly
to
don't want to stand on
13.3.
ceremony. and use that.
yeah, that's why I want to go through.
Yelled
this.
at by me instead if you want. Pick.
Gonna end up with?
13.3.
13.3.
Okay.
Put the wrong one in there.
Yeah, I guess what happened was this, the survey came in at, with Sean's redo at 12.8. So what is this, like a half a foot, right? So
Right.
Someone's got to figure that out. They'll have to figure that out. They'll yell at me, by the way.
Let's go through the
Yeah.
bunch of them and make sure that we don't need to renotice.
That's what
No,
we're doing.
no,
That's
that was the
pretty
only
much
one,
it.
that's the only one that I saw, yeah. There was a 3 foot was always there. The front yard setback was always there. The lot coverage disappeared and the total side yards just got a lot better.
Okay.
To, 47.6. And that was, Brad, you remember you took it from, because there's the jog and then.
There's a combined side yard. I have to go from the vertex of the jog there to.
No argument, but it's shown out, the Rana Group called that out at 47.6. Right there.
We have
I mean, most of the side yard setback is wildly in conforming from a total point of view, obviously not for this minimum over here. But at this jog, it's 47.6, and that was what was advertised for.
All right.
So they'll just have to, if you're kind enough to grant the relief, they'll just have to make the 13.3 work, because I'm certainly not gonna ask or renotice a project like this for half a foot. someone's gonna yell at me and tell me those are the standard size of the refrigerator. Don't worry about it. So you were gonna say something, Brian?
Village was trying to rush this along and to get
Yeah,
a
you're very accommodating, very accommodating.
plan, and it got changed, so.
Yeah.
We're trying to move this thing along.
I agree.
Yeah, we are too.
We got to agree on the plan and stick with it.
That's fine.
All right. Anybody have any questions? Board members, you have any questions for Mr. Bennett? No? Anybody out there in our audience tonight have any comment on this application? Okay, I think we've answered all our questions for us, Mr.
Okay.
Bennett. I appreciate that. That was a very thorough
I hope so.
notification you gave us, and
If you're gonna close,
yes.
then leave it open so that you could submit a revised survey
Okay. Should, yeah,
showing the correct setback. So we don't have conflicting plans.
Got it.
and
You set back to the survey.
The
shows
the
12
13.3.
It shows 13.3.
No, he's saying it shows 12.8.
the latest survey says 12.8.
Okay,
And I can't be critical, my gosh, we were writing denial letters, a couple different ones, so sorry about that.
okay.
They're just gonna have to make it work.
Okay, so I'll make a motion. We close this hearing pending the receipt of an updated survey showing the correct 13.3 foot step back.
Thank you
Okay,
very
I have a
much.
second on that.
Second.
Second by Jim. We all in favor?
Great Thanksgiving, and
Thank you, Mr.
thank you
Bennett.
for your words about Paul. It was shocking and sad.
It was very
met
sad.
Paul when I was the town attorney. He was the first guy I sort of bonded with, and we had a lot of interesting conversations and adventures, and he was a wonderful man. I've been missed.
I worked with him from the day he got here, and he
Yeah.
was, thank you. You have a good one. Have a good Thanksgiving. Thank you very much. Give me a moment to get this situated. All right. Oh, into our new applications. Let's see. Number 14 is Kathleen Hay, 69 Beach Road. Applicant requests a variance from 19735A to legalize a patio at grade constructed in a side yard where prohibited, and also from 19735E1 as the patio at grade setback is 9.4 feet where a minimum of 10 feet is required, in conjunction with the construction of an in-ground swimming pool where relief is granted by the ZBA for the pool with a smaller patio on May 20th, 2021. So this is the pool back again, huh?
Yes, for the applicant,
Our
James
third-
Enhume.
Our
322
third
Beach
shot
Road.
with this one, huh? We're gonna
Yes.
find-
I think it gets simpler and simpler though.
It does get simpler. I'll give you that.
So, in any event, the applicant owns property at 69 Beach Road.
Mhm.
Currently, the property is currently improved by a single-family home, a pool with jacuzzi, and a patio surrounding the pool and jacuzzi. The challenge for this lot has been and remains the fact that the house was built so far back on the lot that there's really no rear yard for the accessory structure. So back in 2017, I came before you for a variance to allow a pool to be constructed in the side yard.
Yeah.
And you granted that.
Mhm.
And then in 2021, I came back again on behalf of the new owners and sought and was granted a variance to add to change the pool from vinyl to gunite and to add a jacuzzi. And that was granted as well. So fast forward to more recently, a building permit was granted earlier this year to construct the pool, jacuzzi, and patio around the pool and the jacuzzi. But in constructing it, well, first of all, in the packet that I had submitted, there's a survey that was last dated March 19th, 2021. And it shows what was approved in 2021 by that variance, and it shows the jacuzzi and the pool, and it shows a paver patio It was approximately 4 feet around all of that structure. So it wasn't, no, to be fair, perhaps it wasn't completely clear that we were limiting ourselves as to the patio, but in any event, when it came time to construct or reconstruct the pool and add the jacuzzi and build the patio that was built is reflected in the survey that I submitted dated October 6th, 2023. And as you can see, it's more squared off and there's a little bit more depth to it. And so that triggered the need for the two variances. One, again, we're expanding a structure in the side yard. And two, the patio as built is 9.4 feet from that side property line, and it's really supposed to be 10 feet. So it's 7.2 inches too close to that line. The pool is exactly where it's supposed to be and exactly the size it's supposed to be. The the jacuzzi is exactly where it was approved and exactly the size it was supposed to be. And so we're really just kind of trading a little bit of what is lawn for a little bit of what is a masonry patio. So it doesn't really, to any great extent, add to the ability to use the pool or that area because they could have sat on the grass, made noise on the grass if they chose to. But if, it's a little more comfortable to have a flat, stable surface to put a lounge chair on. And that's basically what they're looking. The other thing that I had submitted was a series of photographs, and I reproduced two of them tonight, but there were, I think, four of them in the packet showing that the area of the pool is very well screened from the adjacent property to the point where it's difficult to see from one side to the other.
Yeah.
And you can't really, well, I guess you can see it in one of the photographs. There's a substantial stockade fence on the property line as well, in addition to the very tall, I don't know if they're what form of evergreen they are, but they're pretty tall. And so that's basically it, what we're looking for.
I think the applicant just likes to keep sending me back here. for
Exactly.
more, huh?
Yeah, this is, if I
Right.
still had a kid in college, this might be a wonderful. But, fortunately, that time has passed.
Right. I don't have any other questions for you, Jim. No? Anybody comment on this application? All righty. You think we're done with this pool? 2011,
I don't want to.
2015,
I don't want to forestall
2023?
a future further application, but I think so.
Yeah, okay.
And this is built, so it's not
Yeah.
like, not like
Well,
they're going to
I-
build it, then they're going to build something different. It's actually there.
It's
So.
actually there.
Yeah.
Last year, they just expanded what they were. Okay. I don't have anything else, so I think if nobody has any comments, then so I can make the motion and we go ahead and close this hearing for a decision. Second by John, all in favor? Aye.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jim. All right, number 15, John Rigler, 71 Lilac Road, applicant requests variances for 197.7C to construct a two-story addition with a resulting building area coverage of 23.6% of the lot, total lot area, where the maximum permitted is 20% from 197.7D for a proposed front yard setback at 20.3 feet, where the minimum required is 50 feet, and also from 197.7D for proposed side yard setbacks of 11.8 and 13.6, where the minimum required is 20 feet, and proposed combined side yards of 25.4 feet, where the minimum required is 50 feet. Good evening.
Good evening. I'm Leo Pazinski, P-Y-Z-Y-N-S-K-I, architect for Mr. Regler.
Righty. So why don't you take us through, it sounds like a lot here.
It is a lot.
I mean,
and,
it sounds like there's a lot of variance, a lot of relief that you need. We were there to see the house, but take us through this, what you're doing and why you need this relief.
Essentially, we're taking down the front part of the main house and rebuilding it in the same exact location.
Mhm.
Right now, it's a crawl space and very small rooms. And what we're looking to do is rebuild it with a cellar as well as a second floor with only 2 rooms, a small office and their master bedroom and a master bathroom.
That's going up.
That'll be on the second floor. The porch that's across the front of the house will be coming out the same distance as the existing portico that's there. So essentially, we're not reducing the setbacks any further than what's already existing. The back
They
section,
going longer?
we are going longer with an attached carport to the north. Um, it's just gonna be open on 2 columns, not enclosed garage, just so they can park there out of the elements.
Is that where the garage, the driveway is now, or?
Correct, on the
you
north
have
side where the,
paved Concrete there now?
yes, sir.
You're just gonna cover that over?
Yep, with the porch roof, we'll continue across and then go up and then back down, all as one entity.
Okay.
And so we couldn't build over the back. The back was built with a full cathedral ceiling, and it would be a significant cost to add over that. And I'm not really sure what they did foundation and footing wise there. So we decided to have a little more storage area there too. So that's why we're going with the added expense of the full cellar. The cellar will remain unfinished. It's just going to be for storage use only.
Mhm.
And so it's really just adding those 2 rooms on top. Going down the variances one by one, we will be at 23.6%. But they do have a huge, over 500 square foot deck that ranges from 12 inches to 16 or 14 inches above grade. That's about 544 square feet. And if we take that in consideration as just a deck, that would reduce our lot coverage down to 16%. So because of that deck, that's one of the reasons we are here, because we were essentially rebuilding what's there with the exception of the porch and the carport. The front yard back setback is 20.3 to the portico and porch. That's not changing at all either. The side yard setbacks are not changing with the exception of the north where the carport is going. The south side will remain where it is. We're going straight up. The house itself is going straight up with the exception of that small extension in the front next to the carport. And then the combined side yards again are being reduced by that carport.
Leo, I've got a question.
Yes, sir.
When I originally read this, it looked like an addition to the first floor.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yes, we're squaring off that little front part of 8 by 12, 8 by 10. If you look,
The front part of the house, is it an addition, or are you just taking it down, and rebuilding the first and second floor?
we're rebuilding the entire house, taking it down and rebuilding it straight up. We're squaring off that little 6 by 6 area to have a full front across the fronts.
Right, so the only thing that's remaining would be the deck and the rear part of the house.
Correct.
That lot. I mean, I know I have it here, but
Square foot,
75 feet, yeah.
we're only at 8,333.
Yeah.
We have only 5 houses on that side of the street from the school parking lot up to the commercial stores.
And you back up to,
And we back up to
you
the
back
school
up to
also.
school property.
So it's
Right.
kind of staying within the character of that particular area. The lots are all small on that side of the street.
Right.
And they all back up to the school or the school parking lot or the commercial area. And also, the commercial stores are much closer to the street than we would be. And essentially, we're going straight up where the main house was. We're not encroaching any further to the street. Again, the only exception would be for that carport, just for coverage for 1 car.
Right now, that's where you park anyway.
Correct. But it's just not covered.
You're just gonna cover your parking spot.
Yeah, we have the columns that are gonna be on the porch are gonna wrap around and continue to the back, and it'll all, at the end of the day, it'll be all tied in nicely.
The roof line on the front porch will extend to the carport, and it'll give it a much nicer architectural look in front.
Yeah.
Less boxy.
Well, as long as you get those leaves cleaned up, John. I don't have anything else in the gentlemen. I don't have any other questions. Again, anybody out there have any comment on this application? Okay, gentlemen, thank you very much. I'd like to make a motion. We close this hearing for decision.
Second.
Second by Joe, all in favor?
Aye.
Got a decision in this round, okay? Have a nice night. Yeah. You see this here? Hmm?
Yeah, wow.
Walking forward, picking deck, you know? Oh,
Postage stamp.
yeah, really. Actually, 500 feet from the ocean, right? Okay, our next one is Pine West LLC, 451 Dune Road. Applicant requests variances from 74.5C2 for a proposed dwelling within the coastal erosion hazard area where construction of a non-movable structure within the CEHA is prohibited from 197 8D for a proposed front yard setback of 50.2 feet where the minimum required is 75 feet, and also from 197 8D for proposed side yard setbacks of 18.3 and 19.7 feet where the minimum required is 20 feet with a proposed combined side yard setback of 38 feet where the minimum required is 50 feet. Also for 197 8D for proposed rear yard setback to the crest of the dune for 50.3 feet where the minimum required is 75 feet. From 197 35C for proposed front deck side setback of 18.3 feet where the minimum required is 20 feet. Also from 197 35C for proposed rear yard side setback is 19.2 feet, where the minimum required is 20 feet, and with a rear setback to the crest of the dune of 51.1 feet, where the minimum required is 75 feet. And lastly, from 197 35C for proposed pool rear setback to the crest of the dune of 55.5 feet, where the minimum required is 75 feet. Bada bing.
How you
Good
doing?
evening.
Good evening. My name is Bill Schilling. I'm the owner and the president of Pine West LLC. Something that's changed on the variance, which wasn't submitted, is when I had the title search done, um, according to the title search, that property was single and separate from 1946.
Mhm.
So that means I'd be allowed to have the side yards without having to go for the variance according to what, the rule is. So that was not submitted to
Small
you at
lots.
the time.
Yeah.
So I'd be able to have those side yards with the fact that it's been single and separate since 1946. So really, the only thing I would need would be the front yard and the rear yard.
Has that info been presented to you?
Yeah, I didn't have it on the denial, we got a copy, I reviewed it, and it looks legit. They have over 20,000 square feet in the lot area, and it appears to be single and separate before 1952. So that side yard could be reduced proportionally, as well as the combined side yard.
So does that eliminate both?
Eliminates four of them, it looks like, because it's the both side yards for the house with the combined side yard. And the deck side yards are not an issue.
The 19.2 is out?
It's 90 feet where, well, it's 10% actually. So the 19.2 is not a problem. The 18.7 might still be a problem. Fortunately, supposed to be 100, it's 90 feet, so it's 90%. I think it's proportional.
I guess the question is just figuring out what variances are left.
Well, like I said, I was, when we designed the house to the property, I was going by what we were told as far as if we had that side yards, that's what we used. So I'm not 100% sure, but the way it was explained to me when we did it initially was that would fit into that side yards. The house would fit into the side yards if it was grandfathered from the 1952.
How much are
So-
gonna change over what's there?
It's really not, I have a blown up survey of it, because that was a question that came up. If you look at the actual house where I have a dotted line on the survey right here, you can see, real easy to see it on here if you want to look at it. There's a dotted line, which is the existing house, okay? So we're actually within the footprint of the existing house front to back, pretty much. Okay, it's really, it's not too far off what's there. You see the dotted line on the red survey? The back, so the back, off the back here, at the The deck that's here now. Not going any further past what's existing right now. as far as that. Because I know that came up before as a question, somebody was concerned about going any further than what was there, and we are not going any further.
What's the lot portion? So you could be 18.
We actually designed the house to,
So-
to fit
So this is
that
out,
envelope,
right?
you know, without having to go,
Mhm.
you know,
It's out.
any more than that. And I have an aerial shot of the house also
Text,
that
right?
shows the other
Sounds
houses
fine.
in the area
Mhm.
that, the house, when it's said and done, look at the other houses on the frontage here, especially the house right next to me, is a lot further forward than everybody else.
Forward
With the
to,
ocean.
to the ocean, yeah.
Okay, we're actually gonna be right in line, the dimensions and everything else is gonna be right in line with the Sandcastle
Mhm.
condominiums pretty much, so the front and the back, I measured out, it's pretty close to being exactly what they have.
So the house is already there, the deck is already pretty much there, everything, you're gonna put a pool in.
Correct, we're putting the pool in the rear yard.
Yeah.
It's a very small pool, it's only like 12 by 16, it's not very big.
Uh-huh.
Because obviously the lot coverage and the square footage, I can only do so much with that piece of property.
Yeah, without relief from the CEHA, I don't think you could build a house.
Yeah, it's pretty much a zero lot line right now without the,
Pretty tight there, huh?
Yep.
So you definitely need the, well, you know, the front yard setback on Dune Road is you're able to pull away now. The house is already there, because our concern is always with the crest of the dune. But I'm looking at this property and you're like, what, 546 feet deep?
I know, it's a big piece of property and I can only use a little piece of it.
You can only
Correct.
use a little piece of it,
Yes, exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. And like I said,
Seeing here is a pretty modest house you're looking to build on Dune Road.
yeah, I mean, it's only gonna be like 3,800 square feet, the house, all said and done. It's a tough lot it's a tough lot, you know, there's no doubt about it. It's a tough lot as far as that goes.
You saw the, request from your neighbors as far as screening goes.
Yeah, the trees along that side.
Yeah.
Obviously, we're gonna put something up on both sides
Yeah.
because we do have there's a right of way on the other side, which we wanna obviously keep that private from, you know, the house itself. And, you know, obviously I'm building this house to sell the house, so I gotta make it look very, you know, curb appealing.
Right.
And not that I'm knocking the building next to me, but it's just a white wall. There's no windows, no nothing on that side of the house. So I'm
Yeah.
obviously gonna wanna screen that because it's not the best part of that building.
Right.
You're talking about the condos? on the
Yes,
east
yeah,
side?
the condos on that side are
West
very,
side?
very, very plain. It's just a white, like
The wall.
siding
Yeah,
wall.
there's no windows or anything.
There's
there.
nothing on that side.
Yeah.
So obviously I would want to plant that just to, so I wouldn't have to have that seen from my house anyway.
It's a
Well, whatever
pretty-
kind of decision we make, we'll probably write that in.
Okay, that's fine. I have no problem with that.
pretty modest. We don't need the side yard, so let's see.
Brad, just for the record, Brad explained it to me, there's 4 variances,
Yeah,
5 variances that are needed. 4 of them were eliminated because of this
Okay.
proof, because there's 2 side yards. 197.8D proposed side yard setbacks are eliminated.
Mhm.
197.8D proposed combined side yard setbacks eliminated.
right.
And then the front deck side setback of 18.3 feet is eliminated. And the rear deck side setback of 19.2 feet is eliminated. So it's 4 variances that have been
Eliminated, so we still need.
eliminated based on their proof.
Right,
Still
so
need
all I
the
need,
front
so all I
yard.
need is the
Rear?
right off the dune and the front off
Front
the
yard.
off the front.
Correct, and the coastal erosion.
Coastal erosion.
I apologize for that. My architect was the one that submitted the paperwork, and for some reason, he didn't give the title search when he brought it in, so. And then when I read the paperwork, that's why I brought it in to show it to you, after I read the, you know, paperwork that you guys submitted.
Hey, I have no other questions for you, gentlemen.
Good.
Anyone? Anybody have any comment on this application? All right, then I'll make a motion. We go ahead and close this, hearing for decision. So I'd like to make a motion. We have a second?
Second.
Second by John, all in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Have a good holiday.
Thanks. Have a good night. Decision.
Single separate, it's single.
I just saw that today, this thing on separate.
We're safe and sorry.
Yeah. All right, number 17. Michael Jesselson, 49 Bayfield Lane. Applicant requests variances from 197-682 for proposed habitable space studio and detached building, which is deemed not to be normal and accessory to principal single-family dwelling use from 197-35A for proposed studio building, which is located partially in the front yard where prohibited. Also from 197-35A for proposed pool and cabana, which are located in the front yard where prohibited. And lastly, from 197-35A for existing tennis court proposed to be maintained in the front yard where prohibited. All right. Good evening.
Hi, good evening. Karen Hoag from Timmy Latham on behalf of the applicant. And here with me this evening is Hisa Matsunaga from RUR Architecture. Before turning over to the architect, I just wanted to provide some background on the property, discuss the relief needed, and briefly touch on the variance standards. A more thorough analysis of the variance standards was provided in a memo of law that we submitted earlier in the week. The subject property is a conforming lot in the R1 zoning district in the special flood hazard zone. The applicant acquired the property in 2015, and the property at that time was improved with a single-family, two-story frame dwelling, detached one-car garage with habitable first and second floor space, swimming pool, and patios. These structures received severe damage from Hurricane Sandy, and the house, pool, and patios were demolished in 2018. The detached garage and tennis court are still remaining on the property. The existing detached garage contains a finished room and bathroom at grade level and bedroom, living room and bath and second-story space for owner-occupied accessory use and are proposed to be demolished. The habitable use in the detached structure was permitted via several COs, the most recent of which was issued in January 24th of 2007. Prior to the 2007 CO being issued, the following building permit COs were issued for the detached garage and its habitable space on both the lower level and second floor. Permit number 37-73 issued on July 25, 1973 for a garage and servants' quarters for sleeping. Alter existing top floor of garage structure for servants' quarters, number of stories, 1.5. A CO was issued on July 26, 1985 for a one-family, two-story frame dwelling, swimming pool and brick patio, three-car frame garage with a second story containing a bedroom, living room, and bath only for accessory use, tennis court with wood frame open shelter to observe tennis from. In 1990, a permit was issued which stated existing use and occupancy, garage on ground floor, accessory bedroom second floor, intended use and occupancy, playroom, number of stories 1.5, and minimum habitable space 690. In 1996 rather, there was a CO issued for alteration to provide a finished room and bathroom at grade level of the detached garage. The January 24, 2007 CO permitting the habitable space in the detached structure was prior to Village Code 197-14, which was added in 2016, prohibiting secondary habitable space in a separate building unless that use is a non-conforming use as defined in the Village Code. The denial letter, which was issued on October 6, 2023, stated the relief as stated, which was needed from Chapter 197-6A2 of the Village Code, as the proposed habitable space in the detached building was not deemed to be normal and accessory. In this regard, we know that the board is empowered to grant a special permit pursuant to section 197-29C to allow the reconstruction of a non-conforming use. Section 197-29 provides that a non-conforming use can be reconstructed or altered with the permission of the zoning board, provided there is no increase in the degree of nonconformity, increase in height, or floor area. The proposed accessory studio building for use by the owner and family members will not be an increase of any nonconformity. There's no increase in height. It's proposed as a one-story building. The proposed study is proposed at 679 square feet, where the pre-existing garage with the habitable space was 735 square feet. The proposed studio is to be in the same area of the property as the detached garage and conforms to dimensional setbacks. The tennis court, which is subject of a CO dated July 26, 1985, and CO 70004 dated January 24th, 2007, also remains on the property and has been maintained over the years. It's currently 7,233 square feet, and we are proposing to keep it in its current location, although reducing it in size to a conforming 7,200 square feet. The applicant proposes to construct a single-family dwelling, garage, swimming pool and spa, cabana, patio, new sanitary system, generator, carport, and additional detached accessory structures. All of those structures are conforming with respect to dimensional regulations, lot coverage, GFA. And the applicant has cited all improvements on the properties so that no variance were needed for those dimensional regulations or lot coverage. The subject property is burdened by its orientation as a corner lot. It has frontage both on Bayfield Lane and Bayfield Court. Accordingly, the applicant has proposed to place the main dwelling in a conforming location on the southern side of the property, which is the widest portion of the lot. This leaves minimal area for accessory structures and amenities. The pre-existing non-conforming tennis court listed on the prior COs has been on the property since 1985, as well as the detached existing garage. The surrounding properties and neighborhood in general are similarly configured as the subject property. 5 of the neighboring properties have tennis courts, and a number of the properties in the vicinity in the R1 zone are corner lots with tennis courts. There's 95 Jessup Lane, 1 Stacy Drive, 7 Stacy Drive, 22 Bayfield Lane, and other properties with pre-existing non-conforming tennis courts in the front yard, or 10 Reynolds Drive, 22 Stacy Drive, and 7 Bayfield Lane. Other approvals for tennis courts and similar structures located in the front yard include property at 37 Exchange Place, which received a ZBA approval to reconstruct a tennis court in its current front yard, subject to size reductions and implementation of a drainage system. The location was found not to cause an adverse impact on the community character. 1 Stacy Drive, which is a corner lot, received variance approval to construct the tennis court in its existing location, as stated in 1986 decision allowing the court to encroach into the front yard. And the variance application was approved on the condition that the court be surrounded by plantings to mitigate any noise and screen of the court from the street. As shown in the submitted plans prepared by the architects, the entire property will be enclosed with mature evergreen plantings in line with these conditions. The board also recently granted a variance for a pickleball court in the front yard at 13 Stacy Drive. This property had a previously approved variance for a tennis court in the front yard. These decisions state that there was no adverse impact to the character of the neighborhood. Similarly, the board granted variances for accessory structures located in the front yard at 5 Michaels Way in a decision in July 21st, 2022. Like the subject property, Michaels Way has more than 1 front yard, and in order to place accessory structures in locations that were not too close to neighboring properties, it was practical to situate the structures in the front yard. So surrounding properties all have pools with pool houses, cabanas, and places other than the rear yard. And with the proposed screening and the irregular layout of the property, the location of these structures in one of the front yards will not detract from the character of the community. We have received 2 letters in support of our project from neighbors, one being across the street at 50 Bayfield Lane and the other neighbor being at 65 Bayfield Lane. So if I'd like to hand out those letters.
If you pass them down. I can pass these down.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, what's the change?
So as discussed, the subject property is burdened by the shape of the lot and the frontage on Bayfield Lane and Bayfield Court. And based upon the narrow building envelope that these particularities create, the applicant has chosen to construct the main house in an entirely conforming location in the lower southern portion of the property, which is the widest portion of the lot. Because of this, any other accessory structures, all of which are customary accessory structures to a residential property in the village, require variances. The requested variance for the placement of the structures are not substantial when taken into context of the unique orientation of the property and the constrained building envelope that results from the same. Additionally, the requested variance for a studio and a detached garage in a detached structure rather, is in line with various iterations of the code that allowed studios and accessory structures as evidenced by the prior COs dating back in 1985 and 1990. This would present a continuation of that prior use. Location of the accessory structures in the front yard of the subject property will not have an adverse effect on the environmental conditions of the neighborhood. This property was previously cleared and developed and has not been redeveloped since the previous residence was demolished in 2018. There will be no additional disturbance to natural features of the property. No natural vegetation will be lost due to the construction of these structures. And as noted, the surrounding properties are all similarly improved, and the development of the subject properties in line with the extent of improvements on neighboring properties and in the village in general. So if nobody has any further questions of me, I'd like to turn it over to the architect to just explain the design and how we came about putting the structures where they are.
I have a question.
Sure.
You have a pre-existing tennis court.
Yeah.
And a garage with an apartment, right? Is that how that is? So, reviewing this, I saw that you had a demolition request when you took the house down that also included the garage. But we have, it says right here, to be demolished, and yet it's still there. And the tennis court is still there 5 years later on a property that does not have a primary resident, principal residence there, which isn't allowed under the village code either. So you have a 5-year span there where they, why isn't that tennis court gone?
Well, the intent was when the applicant had submitted the applications, once the property was destroyed by Sandy as well as some of those structures,
Mhm.
the applicant had engaged with a architect who was not the current architect to come up with a redesign. And it was an architect from upstate New York, and it really, the designs that were being presented were really not reasonable to the client. So that being said, we had agreed to, the homeowner had hired a new architect, and we started working on new plans. COVID hit, that put a bit of a delay on everything, and then there was a recent passing of the main architect who was working on this project. So it took us some time to get this all back on track, which is why we are here today. In the meantime, what we've been doing is maintaining the tennis court as is, and we want to maintain it in its current configuration as it has been in existence over the years, and as it exists on similarly situated properties. So yes, while it has taken a bit of time for us to get to this point, we're finally happy to be here. And I know the neighbors, I'm sure, will be very happy that, yes.
But why wasn't why was initially submitted to take down the garage.
The garage, I
Why-
believe,
Why is that still there?
yeah, so I think that that was still there, is that there was a change also in contractors that were working on this project. So there has been various shifting of personnel, over the years, and, now my understanding is they have a new contractor lined up. So as part of this process, we will be taking that structure down.
Now, one more question for you.
Sure.
You have two front yards, obviously, for the corner lot.
Yes.
Where do you define your rear yard?
Well, that's an interesting question, because that sort of has evolved over the years, because when we had first met with Mr. Houlihan, he had indicated to us that the interpretation was a little bit differently. We had met with Brad when we were putting the new plans on a survey in terms of getting an understanding of how he is interpreting it. My understanding, based upon his interpretation, is that because both properties have two front yards, there are two rear yards. There is no side yards on this property. And that is why I believe that the notice is listed the way it is, in terms of stating that the accessory structures are all located in the front yard.
You're saying there's two rear yards,
Well, there are two front yards.
right?
And the denial notice for these accessory structures all state that those accessory structures are being proposed in a front yard.
Mm-hmm.
So if you're looking at Bayfield Court as a front yard,
Right?
and you're looking at Bayfield Lane as a front yard, these structures that are proposed are being proposed in what would be interpreted as a front yard. And that's how the denial was written up.
So, but if you listen as a rear yard, you only have 33 and 35 feet. The rear yard, we need 50 feet where the house is situated. And Brad's gonna take it. Go ahead, Brad.
Right, corner lots, two front yards. Side yard could be either to the west or to the south. There is always gonna be a side yard.
Okay,
The side yard in this case is to the south, because that's 30 feet is the minimum required in R1. To the west, you look at the plan, they have the detached garage with carport very close to the dwelling. But that is actually in a conforming location, because it's 20 feet. It's in the rear yard and it's 20 feet from the property line. It might not be the best, excuse me, the architects here designed to shove it right up against the dwelling, but the rear yard, in my estimation, is west of this proposed dwelling, within the furthest limits north and south. So they could not have accessory structures to the south of the dwelling. They could have it to the west of the dwelling. And then as soon as you get past this furthest north extent, everything else is again in a front yard.
okay.
That's why the,
So we're saying the rear yard is,
because this garage is not, if this garage were attached, they would need rear yard variance. Because it's not attached, it's a detached structure in the rear yard to the west.
rear yard,
That's why only the studio building, the pool, and the tennis court were called out for front yard, where the garage is not called out for anything, because it's in the rear, it's in what could be considered as a rear yard.
the house, looking at it that way, the house designed the way it is in fact in a conforming location with respect to the
So
side
that
yards.
garage is wider than 30 feet.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
Okay.
50 feet from the rear yard to the west, 50 and 30 feet to the south, 50 feet to the east. And of course, it's much more than 50 feet to the wall. So the dwelling would,
the dwelling itself.
we were just talking about the dwelling, that they'd have a permit already.
Thank you, thank you.
I was trying to follow along, but you were talking so fast.
Oh, sorry.
On the prior garage, is the argument that prior garage had living space, right?
Yeah,
And now that essentially that living space is being kind of transferred over to the studio, is that the?
yeah, that's
And
correct.
so is there anywhere in here that has the calculation for what the floor area was for the prior living space to show? Because I thought you said that they were the same.
It's actually smaller. So the prior garage footprint itself was 735 square feet, and that had a playroom on the first floor and a servants' quarters and bedroom, bathroom up on the second floor. The proposed studio space, which I believe is 679.
Okay, is there any way to put that in the record somehow? Because I'm just looking for those numbers somewhere
Yes.
and I don't see them anywhere. But it's important to that section you cited, that if the argument is under 29C, the board can approve an alteration like that, it's important to make sure that the floor area is not increasing,
Yes.
okay?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So, but I'm just looking for those numbers somewhere in the record.
Sure. So Lisa can speak to that, and if I need to submit something supplemental indicating what it was prior and what it is now, I'm happy to do that.
Understand what I'm saying? Okay.
Good evening. My name is Hisa Matsunaga from RUR Architecture. I'm just going to give you an overview of this project very briefly. So as Karen said, if you can go ahead and flip to first page of this handout. So the site is at this corner lot at the intersection of Bayfield Lane and Bayfield Court on this irregularly shaped site with the existing tennis court on the northwest corner. And on the next page, page 3, you will see our proposed 3 structures. Number 1 through 3. Number 1 is a main house. And number 2 is a detached garage. Number 3 is an accessory structure with studio and pool house. And we also have 2 amenities, pool and the existing tennis court, which the owner wants to maintain. And on the next page, you will see those 3 structures with 2 amenities in relation to the setback requirement, which is 50 feet to the north, east, west, and 30 feet from the south. And 20 feet for the accessory structure. And on the next page, you will see our proposed flood preventive measures. Including fill of up to 5.5 feet from existing grade, and which is indicated in number 6. And we also have perimeter French drain all around the site, which is indicated as number 7. We're also adding French drain around the existing tennis court, which is shown as number 8. And on the next page, on page 6, we're also proposing sufficient amount of dry wells. We have 18 of them throughout the development to manage stormwater. The next page on 7 is our approved sanitary plan from Health Department, which is issued on October 16th. And in this site plan, you will see our proposed septic system centrally located within those 3 separate structures with the minimum distances required. And on the next page, on page 8, we're also planning a heavy site screening, using mature, tall, evergreen specimen like cypress, which not only provides privacy for the owner, but also eliminates the feeling for the neighbors of being seen from the site. And in the next 2 pages, you'll see eye-level view of the site. First view is taken from the northeast corner. Here you see the hedge is lowered for site triangle requirement. But you hardly see the house even then. And the next view is taken from the southeast corner of the lot, where plant heights are kept typical, which is around 16 to 18. The next page on, as an appendix, we put our architectural site plan and the floor plan of the accessory structure with studio and the pool house, as well as the building elevation for the accessory structure. As mentioned, this is a single-story building, highly articulated, so that it appears as a rather cluster of smaller building volume rather than one large monolithic volume. And in the next page, you'll also see an eye-level view of the accessory structure with the main house in the background. And the last page, as a reference, is our survey drawing. Thank you. Do you have any questions?
For the studio and pool house,
Yeah.
did you address the plumbing? And why you do or don't need a variance for plumbing? How large is that structure?
This is 679 square feet.
That whole studio?
Let me double check. Yes.
What we're looking for is to differentiate between the pool house where we don't allow anything over 200 square feet to have plumbing and this, and how do you differentiate that?
That's a good question.
Thank you. I gotta help. Because we've had cases before us where, building these things, and we had one tonight, a decision tonight, where there was a pool house built that was over 200 feet, and they modified it and were able to get it down to a reasonable amount by splitting it off. So this pool house right here, it goes out to the pool. Is that accessible through the rest of the studio?
No.
Just looking at it, it doesn't look like it is. So that's separate. The pool house itself
Right.
is separate, and that looks like it's under 200 square feet. I can't.
Yes.
15. Okay, so then the rest, the studio itself is a separate
Correct.
allowed accessible building.
Correct.
Actually, it is 200 square feet.
Is that the math comes out to 200 square
Yeah.
feet?
Yeah.
Thank you, Joe. Okay. Pool house, so. We're gonna conform with that, and this is-
And the elevation is different. Pool house is a little bit lower
Uh-huh.
at 6'6", while the studio is 9. There's that separation as well.
So I'm looking at this, the whole thing is, this whole application with the variance required for the front yard variances was all driven by keeping that tennis court.
Yeah.
The way I'm looking at it, right? So has the applicant ever thought about not having to have all these variances and getting rid of the tennis court? Or moving the tennis court to the back? Moving the house up, you could have not have any variances. And since the property is virtually vacant, is that something that's been considered?
I would think that if, no, actually, it hasn't been considered, the applicant, so you can hear me. The applicant wanted to keep the tennis court in the location that it exists in. It's the location it was existing in when he purchased the property. So that's why he wanted to maintain it where it is. The goal was to try to reduce any dimensional regulations and setbacks and not have any variance for those items.
Yeah.
Which is why the house was sited where it is. I think if you shifted the house, and I think that the architect had tried to do that at some point and facing the house, or shifting it so that it faces, Bayfield Lane would reduce in several variances with accessory structures towards the rear, and we'd be up against the neighboring properties, and would need additional variances, probably larger variances. And noting that there are similarly situated front yard variances throughout the village for accessory structures, including tennis courts, especially on corner lots. That was the avenue that we had taken.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I have aerial photographs showing this tennis court in its same place since 1985. You know, it was CO'd in this spot. I know. But if you wanted to see them, I have them to share. You're welcome. Yes.
On the last page of this, it shows the site plan. The tennis court that's on here, as it's indicated, this is the new size of the tennis court, 72 per square feet.
Yeah, yes. We noticed when the surveyor went out there that it measured at 7233.
Right.
And we know a standard size court is 7,200 square feet.
Right.
So the homeowner, is, you know, agreeable to making it 7,200 square feet, which is more of a standard size. So it needs to be tweaked in a little bit in some areas.
How did you get to that? Did you push it up into the corner a little bit more to?
It has not been touched at all. So,
Okay.
we're not,
It's, the width was wider.
Okay, so just narrowed it. Okay, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Wow.
right.
Okay. And I saw in some literature about lighting, you know, of the tennis court, that this, I assume, will not be lit.
Right, so we know that we have to go to planning, to deal with the tennis court and any fill requirements, so, yeah, so that's, you know, we know that the lighting is usually not, acceptable to boards and neighbors aren't happy about it.
Lot to look at.
And I can look through my records. I know I don't have architectural drawings from when that garage was built that's still standing, showing the square footage. So I'm just going based upon the actual footprints. But I can, you know, double check through my records to see if I have any, you know, recent architectural renderings, just to show the square footage of habitable space so that you can see that it's less. I'd be happy to provide that.
Want that.
So you're saying it's still standing in the same condition it was in? So
Yeah.
can't you send somebody in
Yeah,
from, maybe from your office to certify?
right, and I
Pre-existing
believe at
floor
one
area?
point, a prior architect had gone in there to take the measurements, so we can do that. And I will check my files I'm sure I may have something in there, or, maybe the prior contractor does as well.
Joe, you have anything else? John?
No.
No? So we're gonna need to have that information before we can have a decision,
Yes,
okay? So, you know, should we hold it over?
Yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, well,
It's up to you. I mean, there's a lot to digest, but
There's a lot to
that's,
digest, so-
that's an important piece, having that,
Sure.
because the way the argument flows, you at least have an argument or the habitable space if there's a comparable transfer from the garage to the space. Without that, you kind of run into a big problem, so.
God bless you.
Thank you.
So I mean, we're fine with keeping the public hearing open to next month so that we can
Yeah.
provide you information. I'm sure you're gonna have additional questions. And, you know, if there's further discussion, we,
But, do we have anybody else that has any comment on this application? Some of you folks have sat through our entire show, you know, want to see if you have any comments on this? No? Okay, I'm sorry.
and I just have one last clarification question, I guess, is in terms of the special exception permit, does that have to be noticed? You know, I know that the front yard the front yard variances were all noticed. I didn't see in the code that that has to be noticed as a separate item, but I want to make sure that if we are going to be put over to the next month's meeting, that we're properly noticing it.
Typically notice, one of the reasons why I didn't call out the square footage is that square footage with plumbing it's from the definition of an accessory use. And I was not calling the studio building an accessory use. That's for this board to determine if you feel like it's accessory.
But the question is,
We have-
under 197-29C, if their argument is that the garage's pre-existing lawful habitable space is at over 700 square feet, and they want to rebuild it into a studio, is that a 197-29C?
The reason why I didn't notice it as such is we haven't had a dwelling there in over 5 years. This detached garage building with the hole in the roof has been in disrepair. To keep that up for 5 to 6 years and say, I have a legally existing accessory use without a principal use, I want to reconstruct it now. To me, that's not what the application was. So I didn't notice it as such. Because it's hard for me to say it's existing. It should have came down with the building.
Okay. So there's really no need to do re-notification, I don't think.
I don't think so. I think
I don't think so.
the way it's noticed is the board deems it that it's normal and accessory, or you're gonna grant them that area variance, which we do sometimes to have. It's not a use question, it's just, why is this activity not within the principal dwelling? Why is it out there like we do with detached garages and finished space over? That's up to you.
The difference is the plumbing in the building, which is, that's where what was brought to your attention is that the typical way that accessory buildings are done is that the plumbing is kept in the separate, like the way you have the pool house, right, which has plumbing, but it's only 200 square feet, not being accessible to the other space. So the
Right.
alternative could be to remove the plumbing
Right.
from the studio, which would take it out of that particular code issue. But that sort of would be up to you to decide whether that's you want to go that route or make some other argument that it's still a pre-existing non-conforming situation that you could then kind of transfer over. I think
Yeah.
maybe you need to think about
Yeah.
and talk to the clients about that.
Yeah, so I think we will talk to the clients about that.
It would simplify the application to
Right.
remove the plumbing from the studio space if just, because that changes the nature for our code purposes of the 200 square foot cap.
Yeah.
Okay. And it could still stay in the pool house portion of the building, but it just wouldn't be accessible to the studio.
Yeah, yeah, understood.
Okay.
Okay, yes, I think that's a conversation that we'll have with the client.
All righty. Anybody comments? We'll make a motion, then we go ahead and just hold this over for all purposes for our next meeting. And we'll see everybody then.
Great, thank you.
Second by Jim, we're all in favor?
Have a nice Thanksgiving.
Thank you. Side yard back. Right?
What's next?
Well, that's all the time we have for tonight, so. All right. Okay, Craig and Jacqueline, Mr. 108 Seafield Lane applicant requests variances from 197-6C to construct a dwelling and accessory structures for the proposed building area, lot coverage of 23.5% of the lot, where the maximum permitted is 20%. From 197-6D for proposed front yard setback, corner lot, 28.7 feet, where the minimum required is 50 feet, and also from 197-6D for proposed side yard setbacks of 25.6 feet, where the minimum required is 30 feet.
Good evening for the applicant, James N. Hume, 323 Middle Road, Westhampton Beach, and with me is architect Bill Barbara. And he's here to answer any architectural questions that you may have. So, as indicated, this is a property located at 108 Seafield. It is located in the R1 zoning zone. It's 21,516 square feet in size, which is small from the perspective of the general requirements in the R1. But if you take a look at the neighborhood, you'll see that there's almost no lots in the vicinity of this property that do meet the area requirement. Also, somewhat of a surprise to me, this is in the FEMA zone. It's in the AE8 zone, so any new construction on the site requires compliance with the 8 plus freeboard requirements of the FEMA and the state building code. What is there as of today is a one-story framed house with a garage. The garage is connected to the house by a covered patio. And the existing lot coverage is 12.69%, 12.6%. What is being proposed is the removal of that structure and replacement of it with a new two-story home with elevated to the FEMA requirements, with a elevated pool and patio attached and adjacent. It also is proposed a detached garage. That results in lot coverage under the village code of 23.5%, which is the first variance that we're seeking tonight. But the one thing I wanted to point out about that is the 1,294 square feet of that coverage is the pool patio, pool deck, which if we weren't in a FEMA zone could be constructed at grade and then wouldn't count as wouldn't count towards the lot coverage. And if you do a calculation of the lot coverage of this project minus that 1,294 square feet, you come out with 17.5% lot coverage. So that's one of the facts that we wanted to take into account.
Look, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
When you say 1,294 square feet, are you talking about the pool and patio or just the?
Just the deck.
Oh, just the deck?
Yeah, if you look at the survey, the pool itself is called out as a separate square footage than the patio. If you look on the bottom left. Because the patio, the pool would count as coverage regardless, so I didn't subtract that.
What you're saying is the patio is really the deck.
Yes, it says proposed patio, but it's really a
Okay,
deck.
so it's
because
a
it-
deck.
Yeah, so it has, because it has to be elevated in order to interact in close proximity with the house, which has to be elevated because of the FEMA requirements. So that addresses that particular variance. Again, this is a corner lot. I guess we've talked a lot about corner lots this evening, so it'll continue. We have a front yard on Cox Curve of 28.5 feet versus the 50 feet that's normally required. And the third variance is what has been characterized as a rear yard of 25.6 feet, which is opposite the Cox Curve front yard. In all other respects, the project meets the zoning requirements and the zoning restrictions. One of the things I would say about the rear yard variance is that for all practical purposes, that's a side yard. Because it's, even though it is the rear yard, it is directly adjacent to the side yard of the property next door. You noted, but, oh, okay. 25 instead of 30. Okay. Right.
We're in agreement that through the east is the rear yard, that's where your detached.
Ah,
garage is.
right. Thank you. Thank you. So that's a 4.4-foot variance for that side yard. The things to take note of here is the FEMA requirements required at the elevation of the structures that we're proposing. The property is impacted with 2 front yards. It's a smaller lot in a neighborhood of smaller lots. The front yard setback off of Cox Curve is proposed at 28.5 as compared to 21.4, which is the existing setback. So we're actually increasing the setback on that side. And then the side yard variance is 25.6, which is slightly more than the existing 24.3. So we're definitely in keeping in many ways with what's already there. And in fact, increasing a little bit on those 2 dimensions. The big one being the lot coverage, and I think that there's an explanation for that. I'll have Bill take a step through the project, which is developed in association with the applicant.
So it's exactly what he said. Could I ask you to come closer to the microphone for our recording purposes?
No problem.
Thank you.
Exactly as he stated, we maintained, the proper setback from Seafield Lane, and that's why today we're not receiving any variances for that frontage. As you can see on the site plan here or on the surveys, the outline shows the existing house and how we've retreated from that existing line inward on the property. The Cox Curve side, we've definitely retreated quite a bit more, 7 or 8 feet. On the northern boundary of this, what's called the side yard setback, it was about a 1.5 to 2 foot difference from what it currently is. And as Jim stated previously, we are on a smaller lot. You can technically do a patio at grade, but due to the configuration of the lot, how we have to arrange the house, it's a modest house. It's only about 3,300 square feet, so it's not anything over the top in the area. There are definitely some much larger homes on that street alone. But while maintaining a modest house and having a modest pool, it's only a 16 by 30 pool. We maintain some decking around it for sun chairs, a lounge area for, table and dining, and that's about it. So that is the majority of that, would you say 1,200 and something square feet, 1,294 square feet. Without that today, we wouldn't even be asking for an area variance as we are aware. So we try to be as respectful as possible to the code in the neighborhood. I think this does fit within the, adjacent properties that have just been constructed or are currently under construction around the corner.
Is that an IA system, we're using for septic?
Correct. It's an IA system. The whole front yard is a retaining wall with steps built in, and that was actually just approved from the health department last week. So good news for us is the health department has finally caught up, and they're only about 5 weeks.
5 weeks? Ooh,
Really?
We got approval in 5 weeks on
that's a
this.
score.
Wow.
We don't know anybody either.
Give me, this is your name. What do you think? That's okay.
Yeah, normally I wouldn't be sympathetic to lot coverage, at 23, percent or so, but I think it's a good argument, with a patio at the elevation.
Yeah. Have anything else for you?
I think
Brad?
we would all much prefer it at grade.
Yeah.
But it just doesn't allow it.
Yeah.
Sorry, initial denial, we didn't have the roof cover porches delineated. They provided that. I didn't notice this little projection on the west side of the porch where you're looking 48.7 according to the last plot plan.
No, that's in here.
Yeah. Right.
Saw 50 and 51, and I didn't see that 48.7, so that would have to be renoticed.
If we, if reduce that 9.5 feet to just a 4-foot step, does that eliminate that
50 feet from Seafield.
for the steps even?
No, it's not a step, there's a roof over there. To the west there. It's, at least it shows on, the architect can take a look.
All right, I think that's a question for Phil.
A little jog in the roofed over porch to the west.
Yeah, I'm seeing,
Yeah.
it's on our survey.
Actually not, so it's the gable is dormer.
Right, but the survey shows that it bumps out a foot and a half, foot, 1.2 feet or so.
I think that bump.
1.5 feet.
Few steps. So we can go to the surveyor and have them correct.
The steps don't count, unroofed steps don't count, roofed over portions count, obviously, so we should get a,
Yeah, I think what he's saying is that the roofed over area is at the 50 feet? Is that what you're saying? That this bump out, this to it?
Do you
Is it-
allow the 18 inches of allowable soffit encroachment?
we do 2 feet of soffit encroachment.
Then we'll fall within that.
We can't have a survey that shows 48.7. Have to renotice it, or it's to show 50 feet to the.
All right, we'll fix it. In the words of John,
And you'll fix that so you will not have to
Yes.
renotice it. You're not gonna be looking, you'll have 50 feet,
Correct.
You'll be at 50 feet.
yes.
All right, thanks, Brad.
Sorry, I didn't notice it until today.
In the words of John Bennett, you know. We'll figure out how to get rid of those 2.5 feet.
Yeah.
Yes, he does.
I think we have some very patient people here waiting to have a comment about this application. So if you guys are done for a few minutes. Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. We live in 114 Seafield.
We need to have you come up to, I'm
Sure, sure.
sitting for a long time. It's good to move around a little bit. Okay, so come on up there, tell us who you are and.
Thank you. Members of the board, Philip and Nancy Katz. We live at 114 Seafield. It's directly across Cox Curve from the property.
Right across the street.
Correct, correct. And unfortunately, I didn't have an opportunity to look at the boards, and the copy of the documents I was looking at were a PDF on a computer, so they were not color. But while it would be great, it will be great to see a new, modern house on that site, we are concerned about the proximity to Cox Curve. I believe you're considering your front yard, Cox Curve.
Yeah.
And they're asking for a variance of half of the required front yard setback, roughly. And so we would like to know that it's properly screened so that it doesn't overwhelm Cox Curve. Cox Curve is it's a very quiet street. There are some bigger houses, but they're very well screened. And we would prefer not to be overwhelmed with a big new dwelling that kind of overpowers the street a little bit. I believe you said something about a retaining wall along Cox Curve, and I don't know if that's visible or that's going to be up to grade. We'd have to look at that. There is a problem on Cox Curve with water accumulation. Almost any time it rains, we get water accumulation and puddling on Cox Curve, and it comes back into our driveway.
Front of the house is on Seafield as opposed to Cox Curve. Am I correct? It would be in error. So the front door will be, I'm just repeating, on Seafield.
But the driveway will be on Cox Curve?
We wanted to understand that because that was a little. Sure. And I think we are excited for whatever, we want people to have their dream, of course. We just want to make sure, number one, that the screening is appropriate. We're gonna, and I know this is an impossible question, but you know, how long, there's big trucks and a very small. This is something
Yeah,
to
this
take.
is something to take into
Yeah,
consideration,
we've
but
had some damage. We're new residents. We bought last year, so we're kind of new to the game, and it's really wonderful to see the process here. Thank you. But we've already experienced damage to the front of our property due to trucks. So this is, and you can go, please drive by, have a look. Big divots, right? You know, this is already happening with no construction. Plus,
just from the street itself, your traffic on the road, there's no,
Currently a
oh, I see.
our damages on Cox, not on.
Okay, you guys gotta, we need to direct everything up here, please.
Any damage
Okay.
that's caused on other property, doing construction is obviously our responsibility to repair.
This is true.
I
So-
believe, based on the plan, and how we can coordinate with the contractor, that there's plenty of space on the property to park, coordinate. Perhaps the last thing going up is the detached garage, or we park on the backside, but there is definitely enough space in my professional opinion that can even, sort of on
Yeah. We've seen a lot of construction projects in the village, and I think for the most part, they do a good job of containing everything on the property. But as Mr. Hume said, any damage that would be done would be the responsibility of the construction.
It's just hard to
True.
identify, like, we have nothing to do with you guys. We've got existing damage now, and, you
Yeah.
know, it's our problem, evidently. That's not the point here, but just going forward, we want to
I definitely understand
understand.
your concern, absolutely.
And
It's a real
also-
concern. It's gonna be a big project, and, you know, the one thing I will say is that some of these projects get done remarkably quick.
How do you read my
Okay.
mind? Do we ever get an estimation, and is there any teeth to that estimate?
Well, you know, with, just to give you if we were to approve this variance, we're getting a little ahead of ourselves because we haven't done that. But there is no exterior work allowed to be done during the summer months. So,
We're new. Thank you. Good to know.
okay,
Yeah.
yeah, well, when we grant the variance, we put that restriction on there to ensure the use of our village for our summer residents. That's why, you know, we have a resort area here. So that's one of the things that we do put in for variances. So with that in mind, if they were to get approval, to this, they couldn't get it before December. So then, no matter what, they would have to be done with any exterior work before the summer months. They're not allowed to work on weekends from, I think, May until September, and July and August, there's nothing going on the outside. So
Inside work is allowed.
inside, yeah, but just to give you an idea, there would be nothing that could be done on the outside after, you know, after July,
June 30th.
June 30th. Okay, so that'll give you an idea.
Yeah, helpful.
That,
All of
okay,
this is
that give
helpful.
you
Thank you.
a maximum,
To help you a little more,
okay?
our timeline with bidding and starting construction is our fullest intentions to start construction tumbleweed Tuesday, the day after Labor Day of 24,
Mhm.
and wrap up right around Memorial Day of 25. So that's about a 9-month construction window. That's not during the summer or the season. That's our intentions.
But it wouldn't interfere with the summer.
And is there any way that they could keep the trucks on Seafield rather than Cox Curve? Seafield's twice as big,
You know, I don't,
twice as wide.
I don't know if this board has that, but I'm sure that, I'm not sure, but you could always ask to have it done and work with
Yeah, we'll
the,
certainly express the concern to our client.
yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, that's not,
Your children, we have.
well, that's
we
not
want this
something,
house to enjoy with our family. To
we
be
totally
honest with you,
understand.
this is where I'm coming from. Like we
We
said.
totally
it's
understand.
about-
But, you know, just so you know too, if this wasn't a corner lot, the variances they're asking for would, I don't know, I think it's an R1 district, so you need a 30-foot on the side yard. So,
that
yeah,
corner lot there.
it is a corner lot, and because it's a corner lot, there's two fronts, and that's why we're here tonight. Okay, and your concerns are well noted.
Thank you.
Thank
for
you for
hearing us.
taking,
Thank you.
thank you for taking the time to sit through our show tonight, and
We learned a lot.
I'm sure you did.
Thank you.
Jim, you have anything else? Okay. Gentlemen, you're gonna have to take that outside if you're gonna have a private discussion, okay? Um. Good. Any questions?
You need the fixed.
You have a question back there?
No, I'm not. Appreciate your consideration. Nice to meet you.
Great. And, we needed, do we need the survey changed? Because they were gonna, all right, we need the survey
Right. I mean,
altered.
if you want to close it and give us,
We can close the
surveys
hearing and,
to get you
you
the
know,
survey,
and
we'll do that.
okay, so. Everybody okay with that? So I'll make a motion. We close the hearing, as long as we get that, pertinent to getting that survey. Okay? As soon as you can, get that survey to us so we can have that, decision, okay? So I'll make that motion. We have a second.
Second.
Second by John, all in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you, everybody.
Have a good
Okay.
Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. So,
We just moved in
it's good.
last year. We're brand new. Right, there you go.
Megan, are we off?
Happy to share with you pictures.
Okay, I'm gonna make a motion. We close tonight's hearing.
Second.
Second by Jim. Aye, all done.